Well, the last segment that we read is the recollection of Sheikh Hassan Zunuzi related to events that occurred with Bab and eventually ended up him recognizing Baha'u'llah in Karbala. And Baha'u'llah introduced himself as the return of Imam Hussein, where Bab actually told Sheikh Hassan Zunuzi that you're going to meet the promised one in Karbala with your own eyes. So that's really where we left it off. And so this is a recollection of Sheikh Hassan Zunuzi related to events that occurred during that time. And so overall, what we learned is basically Shiites, Shia 12ers, are waiting for two comings. One was Qa'im, which is the return of Imam Hussein, return of 12th Imam. And return of Imam Hussein, which is synonymous to Quranic and Hadith return of Jesus or Messiah. And the word Messiah is deliverer, basically. And with the interpretation of the sixth Imam, he related that return of Jesus to basically return of Imam Hussein. So that's where this whole story of interpretation of the two comings in Shia 12ers formed. Great. Any questions from last reading we had?
It's Imam Hussein. It's only in forgot the word.
به فارسی بگی.
What?
به فارسی بگی.
هم فارسی میخوام بگم یادم رفت.
You forgot it in Farsi too?
Hadith.
Right, Hadith.
It's only in the Hadith or in Quran too?
Actually, this came from references to Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, which is the sixth Imam, referring to a sentence in Quran.
But Imam
It's not Hadith.
Ja'far al-Sadiq did it.
Right, that it says that he took that word. I think last time you weren't here, we actually took those sentences from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq that created this return of Jesus correlated to return of Imam Hussein.
And how about Mehdi? The Mahdi go to same thing?
Same thing. It's 12th Imam. These are basically the Mahdi and Qa'im. Sunnis don't have any notion in terms of return of Qa'im to be a descendant of Muhammad. They have no problems with that.
Because
Shiites,
before it said Mahdi, the Sunni people believe it, Mahdi come. And Shia believe it is 12 Imam come.
Right, this is the first basically religion. The second religion relates to return of Jesus, which is in Quran.
Yeah.
So somehow, obviously, Shiites have problems with this. And the interesting part is this, that in hadith, they have, Shiites have references to 12th Imam bringing a new religion. I'm sorry. Compare the 12th Imam to all prior manifestations. So what happens if you correlate it to prior manifestation, and that's where illusion of sheikhis came in. It says, look, if these beings that is coming in, the return of basically 12th Imam, and it's compared to other manifestations, they must have a book. Because if there weren't a manifestation, they wouldn't have a book. The reason they compare them to manifestation, and this is where sheikhis started, that these are distinct religion, and the new religion would replace Islam. And these are where Shiites have problems with, because they have a contradiction within their own hadith that referring to Imam as a manifestation. How could you have a manifestation without a book? It's not a manifestation if it doesn't have a book.
So many people have this problem in Islam. It's say if 12 Imam came, they believe that, and they don't want to believe the Baha'u'llah but we Baha'is believe that Bab came, finished Islam, and bring the new religion.
Well, the whole story was Sheikh Ahmad, and this was his allusions related to the religion had degraded to such a point where a new manifestation, new religion needs to come in. It's not correctable. It's not something that the old glory will come back, which is obvious to everyone. So the problem means that, and this is what they have, the advent of Bab and his doctrine completely reversed and answered those questions that the Shia 12ers had. That's why hundreds of thousands of people migrated toward Bab'i religion, because it actually described, and ironically, Sheikh Hassan al-Zunuzi mentioned that in basically 30 days, Bab gave interpretation of Quran in every day in 1/30 of it, and people were writing these. His writers were writing this explanation of what it means, and apparently is lost. So 1/30 of the Quran was revealed, the interpretation of revealed every day for that 30 days in Azerbaijan when he was incarcerated. And apparently he's lost. So and that was the whole process of basically making the Shaykhi allusions come to reality, and it made sense. And of course, they hide the second hadith which Sunnis believe in, that when Messiah comes in or Imam Hussein comes in, he buries the 12th Imam or Qa'im, and he rules forever. So that portion they don't like either.
That's what the news was, at least to Hussein and Baha'i, because they never spoke of a second coming on
Zuhr Husseini, sure.
And we were quite surprised. And I asked other Shias, and they said they didn't know it was supposed to be a surprise. Suddenly the surprise coming. And to think of it, in recent changes in Iran, when they put this title on the belated Ayatollah, they called it Naib Imam, somehow they were trying to justify that this is the first of the...
How coming? I see. So then the Qaim is the second. No, it's really clear in Quran related to return of Jesus that would, or Messiah. Remember, it's Jesus Christ. It's the title of Jesus, which they say it's going to return. Obviously in body. And that's what the whole discovery of Sheikh Ahmad Ahsai was this. These are not same bodies that are getting resurrected, because he said, look, and the whole concept of the spirit and separation of spirit from the body, and the biggest problem Shiites had with Sheikh Ahmad was that when Muhammad rose to the heavens, his body didn't raise. And this was a problem. And Sheikh Ahmad said, no, his spirit elevated. The portion of the body that is of dust goes back to dust. Muhammad's the same way. So these are similar problems Christians have regarding basically
Christian, same thing,
resurrection of Jesus.
Because they actually believed that when they went to the tomb was empty.
No, of course.
When the Jesus comes, same body.
Right. Well, as I said, that's the really, unfortunately, damages all religions when you bring in. By the way, Jesus never said these things. You know, these are man-made. And ironically, when religion doesn't match science and facts, all religions suffer, because superstition enters it, is actually devalues religion as a whole. And that's really what's happening in Iran.
But Gilbert, that notion has helped Muslims in maybe, I hope, at least it was a positive point, because there is a saying among Muslims that say, when you cross people you don't know, be nice to them, because you may be talking to the 12 people.
That's right. No, exactly. Okay, let's start reading. Maybe you start from this side this time.
Okay,
34.
Starts with how grievously, is that what we are?
Yes.
How grievously Sayyid Kazim suffered at the hands of the people of wickedness. What harm that villainous generation inflicted upon him. For years he suffered silently and endured with heroic patience all the indignities, the calumnies, the denunciations that were heaped upon him. He was destined, however, to witness, during the last years of his life, how the avenging hand of God destroyed with utter destruction those that opposed, vilified and plotted against him. In those days, the followers of Sayyid Ibrahim, that notorious enemy of Sayyid Kazim, banded themselves together for the purpose of stirring up sedition and mischief and endangering the life of their formidable adversary. By every means at their disposal, they sought to poison the minds of his admirers and friends, to undermine his authority and to discredit his name. No voice was raised in protest against the agitation that was being sedulously prepared by that ungodly and treacherous people, each of whom professed to be the exponent of true learning and the repository of the mysteries of the faith of God. No one sought to warn or awaken them. They gathered such force and kindled such strife that they succeeded in evicting from Kabila in a disgraceful manner the representative official of the Ottoman government, and appropriated for their own sordid aims whatever revenues accrued to him. Their menacing attitude aroused the central government at Constantinople, which dispatched a military official to the scene of agitation with full instructions to quench the fires of mischief. With the force at his command, that official besieged that city and dispatched a communication to Sayyid Kazim in which he entreated him to pacify the minds of the excited populace. He appealed to him to counsel moderation to its inhabitants, to induce them to relax their stubbornness and to surrender voluntarily to his rule. Were they to heed his counsels, he promised that he would undertake to ensure their safety and protection, would proclaim a general amnesty, and would strive to promote their welfare. If they refused, however, to submit, he warned them that their lives would be in danger, that a great calamity would surely befall them.
So let's go back here and summarizing. Remember, this is occurring in Karbala, which is the tomb of Imam Hussein. So it's in one of the major cities, and Abbas, which was the half-brother of Imam Hussein, that they were martyred in Karbala. So this is one of the holiest places, the second holiest place in Shia Islam. And obviously, when they saw Sheikh Ahmad Ahsa'i passed away and Sayyid Kazim took over, the enemies of this Shaykhi movement became quite strong, and they tried to quench this because they thought Shaykhis are taking the Shiite religion to a completely different segment, which they didn't want to have, because if the new religion would come, which they professed imminently is going to happen, they would lose all their power. And the Shaykhi movement was really showing that this is actually a new religion that is going to come in. And the major thing that they could basically entice the uneducated populace was this issue related to basically resurrection of Muhammad, that they said, no, these are Shaykhis are infidels, and in Quran and Hadith says that Muhammad in body rose to the sky, or to the heavens, I'm sorry. Which really, so they try to create trouble, and during this process, they basically even became so bold. The Sayyid Ibrahim, which is the followers of him, which were Orthodox Shia 12ers, had a resurrection and basically took over the town and kicked out the magistrate from the Ottoman Empire. Remember, the Ottoman empires were Sunnis. So they kicked them out and were trying to basically control the finance of the town and basically run the town themselves so they could do anything they want. And this is really where the story starts, where the Ottoman Empire sends an army to surround them. And of course, they said Kazim went to talk to them to prevent basically a disaster from occurring, because these guys were not military people, and they just wanted in this. So you see similarly you see now the excitement that these Ayatollahs can create in Iraq today, and the same exact thing actually happened last week, where the Sunnis were coming from the northwest, and the Shiite clergy declared basically jihad and called to arms all the Shiites to go and defend the holy site. Same exact story. So these are holy sites of Shiites. They said, no, we should be independent. And guess what happened? So now the story, we're going to read the rest of it. Please go ahead. So the city is besieged now. The Shiites are inside, and Sunnis are surrounding them. Of course, this is a government of Sunni, or Khalifat. Ottoman Empire is surrounding them. Go ahead.
They progressed. It's still happening.
Go ahead.
Upon the receipt of this formal communication, Sayyid Kazim summoned to his presence the chief instigators of the movement, and with the utmost wisdom and affection exhorted them to cease their agitation and surrender their arms. He spoke with such persuasive eloquence, such sincerity and detachment, that their hearts were softened and their resistance was subdued. They solemnly undertook to throw open the next morning the gates of the citadel, and to present themselves in the company of Sayyid Kazim to the officer in command of the besieging forces. It was agreed that the Sayyid would intervene in their behalf and secure for them whatever would ensure their tranquility and welfare. No sooner had they left the presence of the Sayyid and the ulamas, the chief instigators of the rebellion, unanimously arose to frustrate this plan. Fully aware that such intervention on the part of the Sayyid who had already excited their envy, would serve to enhance his prestige and consolidate his authority, they determined to persuade a number among the foolish and excitable elements of the population to sally forth at night and attack the forces of the enemy. They assured them of victory on the strength of a dream in which one of their members had seen Abbas, the brother of the Imam Hussein, who had charged him to incite his followers to wage holy war against the besiegers, and had given him the promise of ultimate success.
Okay, so this Abbas is the Hazrat Abbas, which is the half-brother of Hussein, that he got martyred with Hussein during that with 72 followers of Hussein that got martyred by Yazid in Karbala. And he lost both his arms. So Shiites have a very revered station for this Hazrat Abbas. And so it's one of the holy individuals for them in general. And actually there are two large mosques in Karbala. One is for Hazrat Abbas, and the other one is for Imam Hussein, that they were martyred. So this guy says, I saw him in my dream that you're going to be victorious, and that all it took for these guys to attack an army which wasn't too bright.
Deluded by this vain promise, they rejected the advice tendered by that wise and judicious counselor, and arose to execute the designs of their foolish leaders. Sayyid Kazim, who was well aware of the evil influence that actuated that revolt, addressed a detailed and faithful report on the situation to the Turkish commander, who again wrote to Sayyid Kazim and reiterated his appeal for a peaceful settlement of the issue. He, moreover, declared that at a given time he would force the gates of the citadel and would regard the home of the Sayyid as the only place of refuge for a defeated enemy. This declaration the Sayyid caused to be spread throughout the city. It served only to excite the derision and contempt of the population. When informed of the reception accorded that declaration, the Sayyid remarked from the Quran 1181, "Verily, that with which they are threatened is for the morning. Is not the morning near?" At daybreak, the appointed hour, the forces of the enemy bombarded the ramparts of the citadel, demolished its walls, entered the city, and pillaged and massacred a considerable number of its population. Many fled in consternation to the courtyard of the shrine of the Imam Hussein. Others sought refuge in the sanctuary of Abbas. Those who loved and honored Sayyid Kazim betook themselves to his home. So great was the crowd that hastened to the shelter of his residence that it was found necessary to appropriate a number of the adjoining houses in order to accommodate the multitude of refugees who pressed at its doors. So vast and excited was the concourse that thronged his house that when once the tumult had subsided, it was ascertained that no less than 22 persons had been trampled to death. What consternation seized the residents and visitors of that holy city! With what severity did the victors treat their terrified enemy! With what audacity they ignored those sacred rights and prerogatives with which the piety of countless Muslim pilgrims had invested the holy sites of Karbala. They refused to recognize alike the shrine of the Imam Hussein and the sacred mausoleum of Abbas as inviolable sanctuaries for the thousands who fled before the avenging wrath of an alien people. The hallowed precincts of both these shrines ran with the blood of the victims. One place, and only one, could assert its right of sanctuary to the innocent and the faithful among the population. That place was the residence of Sayyid Kazim. His house, with its dependencies, was regarded as being endowed with such sanctity as even the most hallowed shrine of Shia Islam had failed to retain. That strange manifestation of the avenging wrath of God was an object lesson to those who were inclined to belittle the station of that holy man. That memorable event happened on the 8th of Dhul Hijri in the year AH 1258, the 12th of January AD 1843. It is admittedly evident that in every age and dispensation, those whose mission it is either to proclaim the truth or to prepare the way for its acceptance have invariably been opposed by a number of powerful adversaries who challenged their authority and attempted to pervert their teachings. These have, either by fraud or pretense, calumny or oppression, succeeded for a time in beguiling the uninformed and in misleading the feeble. Desirous of maintaining their hold over the thoughts and consciences of men, they have, so long as the faith of God remained concealed, been able to enjoy the fruits of a fleeting and precarious ascendancy. No sooner was the faith proclaimed, however, than they found to their utter dismay the effects of their dark plottings pale before the dawning light of the new day of God. Before the fierce rays of that rising orb, all their machinations and evil deeds faded into nothingness and were soon a thing forgotten.
Let's stop. Any questions, concerns here? As you see, the besieged, they entered the city and clobbered everyone, and the only sanctuary was Sheikh KÁZIM, Sayyid KÁZIM-I-RASHTÍ's house and his surroundings that were safe haven for people. And even the sanctuary of tomb of Hazrat Abbas or Imam Hussein's mausoleum couldn't prevent the massacre that occurred. So obviously these were Sunnis and from secular government, and they didn't care about Shiites imams at all. So this was a very big lesson for Shiites, and what would happen if they migrate toward superstition and all exciting hierarchy. And it shows the collapse of the basically an influence of the ecclesiastical arm, that how damaging it can be, and still today is continuing. Okay, you can go ahead.
Around Sayyid Kazim were likewise gathered a number of vain and ignoble people who feigned devotion and attachment to his person, who professed to be devout and pious, and who claimed to be the sole repositories of the mysteries enshrined in the utterances of Sheikh Ahmad and his successor. They occupied the seats of honor in the company of the assembled disciples of Sayyid Kazim. To them he addressed his disclosure, and towards them he showed marked consideration and courtesy. And yet he often, in covert and subtle phrases, alluded to their blindness, their vainglory, and their utter inaptitude for the apprehension of the mysteries of the divine utterance. Among his allusions were the following: "None can comprehend my language except him who is begotten of me." Oftentimes he quoted this saying, "I am spellbound by the vision, I am mute with wonder, and behold the world bereft of the power of hearing. I am powerless to divulge the mystery, and find the people incapable of bearing its weight." On another occasion he remarked, "Many are those who claim to have attained union with the beloved, and yet that beloved refuses to acknowledge their claim. By the tears which he sheds for his loved one, can the true lover be distinguished from the false?" Many a time he observed, "He who is destined to be made manifest after me is a pure lineage of illustrious descent of the seed of Fatime. He is of medium height and is free from bodily deficiency."
Remember when we were reading last time, recollection of Sheikh Hassan Zunuzi related to basically Bab and his visit with basically Sayyid KÁZIM-I-RASHTÍ to Bab's house. So at the time, as we read, Sayyid KÁZIM-I-RASHTÍ knew who the Bab was, but he couldn't divulge it. And we're going to read the reason for it. So these allusions that you see here are references to basically trying to tell all those souls that were seeking and getting close to this Shaykhi movement, and he was continuously telling them that although you think you're pious and you're surrounding yourselves with these allusions of Sheikh Ahmad, but none of you really understands what is coming. And the reason was that the whole system was to introduce a new religion. And none of these guys were even contemplating that a new religion would come. And this was the really contrast. They said, even the majority of you, if you knew the new religion is coming, you would turn away from it. Because this idea of the Islam is going to get resurrected was still in their brains. That this 12th Imam would come and basically salvage whatever is left of Islam and make it to its glorious days. Which this wasn't what Sheikh Ahmad was preaching. The whole contrast was that the new religion, the new book would come and would terminate the old ecclesiastical system that caused a lot of harms. Okay.
I have heard Sheikh Abu Turab, a footnote says, one of the leading disciples of Sayyid Kazim, he married the sister of Mullah Hussein. He died while in prison in Tehran. I have heard Sheikh Abu Turab recount the following. I, together with a number of the disciples of Sayyid Kazim, regarded the allusion to these deficiencies from which the Sayyid declared the promised one to be free as specifically directed towards 3 individuals among our fellow disciples. We even designated them by such appellations as indicated their bodily defects. One of them was Haji Mirza Karim Khan. A footnote says, the Bab wrote to Haji Muhammad Karim Khan and invited him to acknowledge his authority. This the latter not only entirely refused to do, but further wrote a treatise against the Bab and his doctrines. Page 910. At least 2 such treatises were written by Haji Muhammad Karim Khan. One of them was composed at a later date than this, probably after the Bab's death, at the special request of Naziruddin Shah. Of these 2, one has been printed and is called The Crushing Falsehood, Isakul Batil, footnote 1, page 910, Journal of the Royal Asiatic Society, 1889, Article 12. One of them was Haji Mirza Karim Khan, son of Ibrahim Khan-i Qajar-i Kirmani, who was both one-eyed and sparsely bearded. Another was Mirza Hassan-i Gauhar, an exceptionally corpulent man. The third was Mirza Muhid-i Shair-i Kirmani, who was extraordinarily lean and tall. We felt convinced that these were none other than those to whom the Sayyid constantly alluded as those vain and faithless people who would eventually reveal their real selves and betray their ingratitude and folly. As to Haji Mirza Karim Khan, who for years sat at the feet of Sayyid Kazim and acquired from him all his so-called learning, in the end he obtained leave from his master to settle in Kirman, and there engage in the promotion of the interests of Islam and the dissemination of those traditions that clustered round the sacred memory of the Imams of the faith. I was present in the library of Sayyid Kazim when one day an attendant of Haji Mirza Karim Khan arrived, holding a book in his hand, which he presented to the Sayyid on behalf of his master, requesting him to peruse it and to signify in his own handwriting his approval of its contents. The Sayyid read portions of that book and returned it to the attendant with the message, "Tell your master that he, better than anyone else, can estimate the value of his own book." The attendant had retired when the Sayyid, with sorrowful voice, remarked, "Accursed be he! For years he has been associated with me, and now that he intends to depart, his one aim, after so many years of study and companionship, is to diffuse through his book such heretical and atheistic doctrines as he now wishes me to endorse. He has covenanted with a number of self-seeking hypocrites with the view of establishing himself in Kirman, and in order to assume after my departure from this world the reins of undisputed leadership. How grievously he erred in his judgment, for the breeze of divine revelation wafted from the dayspring of guidance will assuredly quench his light and destroy his influence. The tree of his endeavor will eventually yield naught but the fruit of bitter disillusion and gnawing remorse. Verily I say, you shall behold this with your own eyes. My prayer for you is that you may be protected from the mischievous influence which he, the Antichrist of the promised revelation, will in future exercise." He bade me conceal his prediction until the day of resurrection, the day when the hand of omnipotence will have disclosed the secrets which are now hidden within the breasts of men. On that day, he exhorted me, arise with unswerving purpose and determination for the triumph of the faith of God. Publish far and wide all that you have heard and witnessed. This same Sheikh Abu Turab, who in the early days of the dispensation proclaimed by the Bab thought it wiser and better not to identify himself with his cause, cherished in his heart the fondest love for the revealed manifestation, and in his faith remained firm and immovable as the rock. Eventually that smouldering fire blazed forth in his soul, and was responsible for such behavior on his part as to cause him to suffer imprisonment in Tehran, in the same dungeon within which Baha'u'llah was confined. He remained steadfast to the very end, and crowned a life of loving sacrifice with the glory of martyrdom.
So basically, as you know, the people that got migrated toward Sayyid KÁZIM-I-RASHTÍ was actually learned people. So there were a lot of learned people and students that were with him trying to understand this new movement. And ironically, they were themselves in a peculiar situation. If this new manifestation would come in, all the power and knowledge that they gather regarding coming of the Messiah would basically devalue the station that they created. It was like a school that when you graduate, you can get basically a particular position, ecclesiastical position anywhere they wanted, with all the amenities that comes from that. And ironically, many of them that describe here fell into that situation where it was beneficial to them to keep the story going rather than saying, okay, the old religion is terminated, now we have to all start from scratch. So this shows that the dilemma, that even those people that were close to Sayyid KÁZIM-I-RASHTÍ, that were scholars of their time, had this conflict within themselves, that they had to leave all they gained and the position that they could have, except few, of course.
And as the days of Sayyid Kazim drew to a close, he, whenever he met his disciples, whether in private converse or public discourse, exhorted them, saying, "O my beloved companions, beware, beware, lest after me the world's fleeting vanities beguile you. Beware lest you wax haughty and forgetful of God. It is incumbent upon you to renounce all comfort, all earthly possessions and kindred, in your quest of him who is the desire of your hearts and of mine. Scatter far and wide, detach yourselves from all earthly things, and humbly and prayerfully beseech your Lord to sustain and guide you. Never relax in your determination to seek and find him who is concealed behind the veils of glory. Persevere till the time when he who is your true guide and master will graciously aid you and enable you to recognize him. Be firm till the day when he will choose you as the companions and the heroic supporters of the promised Qaim. Well is it with every one of you who will quaff the cup of martyrdom in his path. Those of you whom God in his wisdom will preserve and keep to witness the setting of the star of divine guidance, that harbinger of the sun of divine revelation, must needs be patient, must remain assured and steadfast. Such ones amongst you must neither falter nor feel dismayed, for soon after the first trumpet blast, which is to smite the earth with extermination and death, there shall be sounded again yet another call, at which all things shall be quickened and revived. Then will the meaning of these sacred verses be revealed. And there was a blast on the trumpet, and all who are in the heavens and all who are in the earth expired, save those whom God permitted to live. Then was there sounded another blast, and lo, arising they gazed around them, and the earth shone with the light of her Lord, and the book was set, and the prophets were brought up, and the witnesses, and judgment was given between them with equity, and none was wronged. Quran 39:68. Verily I say, after the Qaim, the Qayyum will be made manifest. The footnote says references to the Bab and to Baha'u'llah respectively. For when the star of the former has set, the sun of the beauty of Hussein will arise and illuminate the whole world.
Here, so this paragraph, it's clearly now is really trying to alert, because they were imminently looking for coming of these two manifestations. One was Qaim and the other one return of Imam Hussein, and saying, look, you have to leave everything you have, your titles, your wealth, and go search for these. And based on last reading that we had and chart that I produced, they knew that the excuse me, presence of the Qaim would be only 9 or 19 years. So it was a very short period of time where return of Imam Hussein would occur. So this allusion says that obviously if you believe in these things, you're going to be walking in the path of martyrdom, because you're going against the entire ecclesiastical structure that existed at the time. So these twin manifestations, Qaim and Qayyum, which is reference to the Bab and Baha'u'llah, and which is return of the Imam Hussein, which Shiites believe is the basically the right religion. And through sixth Imam, these two occurrences, which is referenced in Quran, relates to return of 12th Imam and return of Imam Hussein. So these are clearly those areas that these guys were looking for. Now, the interesting part is when you're looking at the first trumpet and second trumpet, this is in the Old Testament as well, that references the two comings in the Old Testament as well. And interestingly, they say those, as Jesus mentioned, when, for example, referring to, they were burying a particular person, and one of the disciples of Jesus says, look, we have to pay our respect to the dead. He says, no, leave the dead to the dead. So these references here of last judgment and dead is not that the judgment is the Messiah would come and kill everybody. It's the question is that this is the difference between a person that was dead, spiritually dead, and people that were not, or they were recognizing the new manifestations. Take allusions to those prophecies that exist both in in Quran and Hadith related to the end of time, describing it exactly the way what's going to happen when these two manifestations are going to come in. People are going to get judged based on whether they would accept the new religion, would be basically resurrected from death that they were in, or remain dead. But the illusion is spiritual, not physical. So this is really, yes.
So is this extermination in death means spiritual extermination in death, or he was referring to something that was...
Well, this is the whole point. It means that people that were physically alive, their spirit would be dead if they won't recognize the Qaim, versus the one that really recognize. It's the same way Jesus mentions regarding basically leave the dead to the dead. Because these are especially, let the spiritually dead people bury the body, because the body is not the important part.
What is the purpose of this message? You can somehow tell that you should be focused on your own search for God, and leave that it is not in your responsibility to do something about those people who are not looking that direction, or
well, this is really trying to correlate the hadith related what would happen in the end of time and resurrection of bodies to be judged, and judged in what. So this is really the question becomes, people would get judged, and when they said the dead would arise, means that those people that are basically Muslims, their spirit would get awakened, but if they believe in the... So it's not that people, bodies from the ground. Again, when you're looking at a literal translation of those hadiths, even in by the way, a lot of these things that came from Muslim religion was borrowed from Old Testament. This is not Islamic invention at all. This question of resurrection of bodies are getting judged came from Old Testament. It is in the Old Testament. It's an Abrahamic type of philosophy. But the illusions that Sheikh Ahmad and of course Sayyid KÁZIM-I-RASHTÍ is bringing in relates to people that were alive but spiritually dead would get resurrected and get judged based on whether they would accept a new religion that they would keep on living, or they become basically spiritually dead for their eternity. That was really the contrast, and he's trying to make the events that will occur, hasn't occurred yet either, will occur when Bab and Baha'u'llah would come, that people would get judged. And these are all the problems that existed with Shaykhi movement that challenged the Shia 12ers regarding literal translation. And of course, if you tell a 12-year-old kid or 10-year-old kid today that bodies from the ground that turn to dust would reconstitute and the person is going to get judged, they would laugh at you. So what is happening is that now he's saying that these are real illusions, and this issue was resolved. That's why 12ers were quite against Shaykhi movement, because it completely reversed this literal translation, which a lot of, for example, let's say evangelical Christians are expecting the same thing, that physically something gets resurrected.
The first time it was resurrected, I felt right away that he was referring to some difficulties that are going to happen.
Exactly.
Not only on the spiritual level, there was suffering, that is...
martyrdom, that's correct.
Is that what it's here, right?
That's correct. It says that the martyrdom will occur, Antichrist would come. So all of those, the key really is how do you correlate those basically allusions to reality of what's going to happen, but not literally. And this was the whole reason majority of Sheikh Ahmad's writings, Sheikh Ahmad Asai and Sheikh movement, was really bringing literally science into the religion itself and trying to describe something that was not describable at the time. And what ended up happening is that majority of the Shia clergy admitted that what he's saying is viable, and they don't understand it. So it wasn't that they were refuting and it was a branch of Islam. As a matter of fact, one of the major attacks that Sunnis do against Shia 12ers, and they call them Shia Rafizis, means that these are that lost their way, basically. Because they actually introduced language even into the prayer. The Shiites did. That they say Muhammad is the promised one of God, or is the messenger of God, and Ali is his protectorate, something like this, which they didn't exist. So Sunnis are going crazy. So how could you insert stuff into the prayers?
It's like interpretation.
No, it's not interpretation.
Injection.
The injection, and that's why their Sunnis are so against Shiites, is that they actually injected stuff into the Quran itself in the prayer. They say Ali and Waliullah, means Ali, protector of God. They just injected stuff. So it's, of course, these had nothing to do with Islam.
Believes that Muhammad is the seal of the Prophet.
No, seal of the Prophet is different story. But there is the Muhammad. Everybody agrees the problem that Sunnis have with Shiite, and ironically, not only these are the issues that they have, the other problem is that they refer sheikhs that in the traditional Sunnis, they believe in return of Jesus, which is in Quran. That as we read the last time, that says that the child in the cradle, spoke to those kings that I'm going to come and live and die and come back again. This is in Quran. So they believe that Jesus would come back. And of course, Qa'im also, and the Qa'im would live and get rid of this, basically, these ideas. And again, this is illusion versus reality, which Muslims believe that he comes and kills everybody that is infidel, which is really, he comes in and brings this new religion, and Shaykhi movement is about this new movement, new religion, which neither Sunnis nor Shiites are agreeing to that, because they know the Islam would come back, which doesn't make sense.
So are we talking about three sects here? We're talking about Shaykhi, Shiite, and...
Right, but Shaykhis, remember, are the end of Shia 12ers. Sheikh Ahmad never claimed to have a different religion.
A third denomination, as it were, of...
No. They believe in everything Shiites believed in, but started to translate allusions of the Quranic doctrine to reality. So Sunnis take the sheikhs and say, look, these were Shia 12ers, which is true.
Oh, okay. So
they say these Shia 12ers are saying that Muhammad didn't raise. They said the new religion is going to come in. So they say all Shiites are bad because they injected stuff into the...
So do Baha'is believe that the Shaykhis are closest to the original intent of Muhammad.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Sheikhs were the ones that are translated.
If I were to go out and buy a Quran,
Sorry?
today, if I were to go out today and buy a
Sure.
Quran, and I were to read it, whose Quran would it be? Shaky?
No, what they did, okay. It's, the name is the same. There is one Quran. There is no two Qurans.
Okay.
Everybody believes in the Quran. The problem is the Hadith and what happened after basically Muhammad died.
Yes.
The minute Muhammad died, the Shiites believe that, again, this is philosophical, that whoever is the family of the Muhammad should be the Khalif, or both religious and political governor of the Islamic State, where Sunnis believe in Sunnat, which was the elder, the most eligible person that is elected by the people should play that role. Now, they didn't really say that descendants of Muhammad are bad or anything, but they didn't assign political power to them. So it's a different issue. But ironically, when you look at Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, which is the sixth Imam, that most of this movement of return of Qa'im and return of Imam Hussein came from him, was a scholar, is one of the brilliant scholars of Islam, that even Sunnis believe in him too. But from a point of view of the translation or interpretation of Quran, not from being a Khalif. So these are the key elements that he tries to describe what the end of time would be. And now Sheikh Ahmad basically started to say, what is this end of time allegorically means. Yeah, this Qa'im wa Qayyum. Qa'im means the terminator, Qayyum means the guy who's going to take care of it afterward. Remember, the 9 or 19 years is going to be a first manifestation. The second manifestation, which in Quran says return of Jesus, would reign forever after Qa'im, which has a short period of time. Qayyum means the guy who's going to take over afterward.
This one sentence, well is it with every one of you who will quaff the cup of martyrdom in his path?
That's right.
Is this the literal translation of now we have the holy martyrs, people that are blowing
That's right.
up
They
for
knew.
God?
That's right. They knew. Actually, in Quran, actually says that what the ecclesiastical are going to do to the early believers. These are completely written. Is that how they're going to? They say, and that's why, in a short period of maybe the first 9 years of dispensation of Bab'i dispensation, hundreds of thousands of people became Bab'is at the time. And the reason was because people weren't against Bab'i religion, because it made sense. It resolved all the issues that they had. The ecclesiasticals were the ones that were attacking, because the whole structure would have collapsed. Because he said, Qa'im has come. So you can't be Nayyib Qa'im. And these guys were saying that we were talking. Remember, Akhbaris, which were, there are two branches of basic Shiites. One was that believed in basically Nayyib of Imam, that we say if Imam is not around, there is somebody physically here that should take responsibility of that and interpret. And that's the whole Islamic state of Iran is based on that. Where Obviously, when Bab came in, it completely destroyed that process because they're saying we're in charge until the Qaim comes in. And this guy came and said, look, it arrived. So they couldn't have any naibs. Yeah. So it was a completely dissolved those political structure and ecclesiastical structure that was built on coming of Qaim was completely collapsed when he declared that I am the Qaim. So it was a suicide because you were going against ecclesiastical and basically political system that existed at the time. And guess what? During the Qajar dynasty, they completely cleansed other religious doctrine from Iran. Remember, prior to Safavid dynasty, majority of Iranians were Sunnis actually, not Shiites. So when Safavid dynasty came in and Qajar later on, they basically did a religious cleansing. They completely destroyed first of all, forced most of the Muslims to become Shiites versus Sunnis, which they accepted. And then they start to purge Armenians, they purged Christians, they purged Sufis, they purged you name it. Of course, it was a political, basically, sort of a wall against Ottomans, the Ottoman Empire, which were Turks, and they were basically Sunnis. So these guys says we can create a wall, and if you are Shiites and saying these guys are infidels, and those guys were telling these guys that they're infidels. So this was the whole political structure at the time, and this was deadly for Shiites because the whole hierarchy they built would have collapsed with the coming of Qaim.
It's interesting, Gilbert, that this mentions the trumpets, which come from the chapter of Revelation of John in the Bible, which most Christians avoid reading because it only speaks about horrendous things that are going to happen. And in one of the blasts that is mentioned here, it says, the armies of the north and the south and the west and the east shall gather around the Tigris and Euphrates to battle each other, which unfortunately that's what we are kind of witnessing, that everybody is suddenly getting involved in that area taken from you.
No, of course. Right. There are a lot of, as I said, the problem is that, and this is the major reason Baha'u'llah says, look, if religion doesn't match science and reality, that's not a religion. You can't have religion that defies logic. This is not a religion. And if the religion is the basis of disunity, which is wars that is going, it's better not to have religion than having a religion that creates disunity.
So is it fair to say after all this purging, now there remains two major forces, which is Sunnis and Shias, and a face-off would be inevitable?
Well, yeah, it's very difficult, and I'm sure these skirmishes will go on, but reality doesn't change. That if you look at, for example, Shiites today, when they did statistics, they say that Iran is the least religious country of the Muslim. That means that it already has hollowed from inside. There is no spirit in Shia Islam anymore. It's gone. It's just the political system and culture that is left, that everybody is milking right now, everybody. So there is none of the Shia Islam is left. And the Sunnis are not better either, and you see what's happening in their environment. As I said, the logic doesn't make sense. That's why they're hiding return of Jesus. You go to any Islamic country, nobody talks about return of Jesus. It's in Quran. Nobody talks about return of Imam Hussein, the two men. Why? Because it's counterproductive to the false story they created. It's a bizarre situation. That's why Baha'u'llah said if there was any place on earth that was more corrupt, more backward, more superstitious, I would have come out of that place. So this shows that if the Baha'i faith survives in this environment and can basically rehabilitate people of that kind of persuasion, I'm sure it would flourish all over the world. So these are really critical aspects about the process itself. And ironically, when you look at last 160 years of quote-unquote Western civilization progress, if you look, every one of them came from Baha'i religion. Not a single one they invented themselves. Equality of man and woman, nature and humanity being the same, you shouldn't destroy the nature, equality of races, equality of religions, you should cohort with any other religion because it doesn't give you a privilege to become Baha'is. These are major, major differences that by naming yourself a Baha'i, nothing happens. You don't get saved. And this is Christians say, oh, accept Christ and now you're saved. There's no such a thing. So in Baha'is, your practice of the Baha'i religion saves you, not telling you're a Baha'i. So these concepts are unheard of because in Baha'i religion, nobody's selling anything. You have to earn it yourself and nobody else can give it to you either. So it's a very peculiar environment, which is really, when you look at, for example, elimination of race prejudices, elimination of language prejudices, elimination of gender against all sorts of prejudices, the root of it, or for example, when Tahirah took her veil off, actually, outside Iran, this is a Persian.
Explain who Tahirah is.
Yes, Tahirah is obviously, I'm sure everybody knows. He was part of those 19 or 18 adherents of Bab, was the only woman. And in Badash, she took her veil off and said, this is emancipation of women. Now, if you go into I think Tajikistan and up there, they have actually statute of Tahirah, that she was the first woman that, and these are not Persians. They speak Farsi, by the way. They speak Farsi, but they're not Persian. But they recognize, and there are numerous theaters and these plays that were played in Europe toward end of 18th century, beginning of 19th century, regarding this emancipation of women, which is started from basically Tahirah. So the history of it, the world recognizes it. They're implementing all of these elements regarding, for example, League of Nations. In I think it was 1914s and 1915s, where Woodrow Wilson's daughter was with Baha'is in New York, and guess what happened? There are 14 rules of League of Nations regarding collaboration of mankind to resolve during consultation and negotiation the affairs of the world, which 12 out of 14 are doctrine of Baha'i religion. And that League of Nations got created. So when you're looking at how, or 1946, when United Nations, when you say individual rights, just go read individual rights. There was a team group that was in charge of producing this. And the closest non-governmental agency that was influenced this writing was the Baha'i doctrine, a Baha'i group. So if you look at it, individual right to practice your own religion, individual right, free speech, is from Baha'i religion. Everybody's opinion is basically sacred for themselves. No one has the right of enforcing religion on somebody else. And they wrote all of this. Ironically, everybody, including Iran, signed that document, by the way. And guess what? Majority of them, if it's not to their advantage, they don't adhere to it. So when you look at the influences of what we call Holy Spirit in the Christian terms, which is revelation, the new revelation that advances civilization, you already see the seeds of that revelation, and the doctrine of revelation is propagated in any ways. Whether we like it or not, whether people accept where it came from, it really doesn't matter. The reality is, for civilization to grow, these elements, these bases of the new revelation has to take root for the humanity to survive and progress. So all of these things relates to implementation of those. So this literal translation of Muslim that this Qa'imi would come in and bring in all peace and justice to the world without a book really doesn't make sense. It's not possible. Never been possible. So another area which Baha'i religion brought in related to non-confrontational process. So for the first time, the whole propagation of religion, first of all, was separated from politics, and taking arms to propagate the religion was taken away. You can't even defend yourself if they're attacking you because of your religion. So it is better to die than kill someone to defend your own religion. So these are really doctrines that slowly is getting implemented, and everybody agrees to it, but majority of people don't implement it. Okay, we're diverging too far.
Then will be unfolded in all its glory the mystery and the secret spoken of by Sheikh Ahmad, who has said, "The mystery of this cause must needs be made manifest, and the secret of this message must needs be divulged. To have attained unto the day of days is to have attained unto the crowning glory of past generations, and one goodly deed performed in that age is equal to the pious worship of countless ages." How often has that venerable soul, Sheikh Ahmad, recited those verses of the Quran already referred to? What stress he laid upon their significance as foreshadowing the advent of those twin revelations which are to follow each other in rapid succession, and each of which is destined to suffuse the world with all its glory. How many times did he exclaim, "Well is it with him who will recognize their significance and behold their splendor." How often, addressing me, did he remark, "Neither of us shall live to gaze upon their effulgent glory, but many of the faithful among your disciples shall witness the day which we, alas, can never hope to behold." Oh, my beloved companions, how great, how very great is this cause! How exalted the station to which I summon you! How great the mission for which I have trained and prepared you! Gird up the loins of endeavor and fix your gaze upon his promise. I pray to God graciously to assist you to weather the storms of tests and trials which must needs beset you, to enable you to emerge unscathed and triumphant from their midst, and to lead you to your high destiny. Every year, in the month of Zil-Qa'dah, the SIYYID would proceed from Karbala to KÁZIM-I in order to visit the shrines of the Imams. The footnote says, the tombs of the two Qazims, the 7th Imam Musa Qazim and the 9th Imam Muhammad Taqi, about 3 miles north of Baghdad. Around them has grown up a considerable town inhabited chiefly by Persians known as KÁZIM-I. He would return to Karbala in time to visit on the day of Arafi, the shrine of the Imam Hussein. In that year, the last year of his life, he, faithful to his custom, departed from Karbala in the first days of the month of Zil-Qa'dah in the year AH 1259, the 23rd of November to the 23rd of December AD 1843, accompanied by a number of his companions and friends. On the fourth day of that month he arrived at the Masjid-i-Baratha, situated on the highway between Baghdad and KÁZIM-I, in time to offer up his noonday prayer. He bade the muazzin summon the faithful to gather and pray. Standing beneath the shade of a palm which faced the masjid, he joined the congregation and had just concluded his devotions when an Arab suddenly appeared, approached the Sayyid and embraced him. 3 days ago, he said, I was shepherding my flock in this adjoining pasture when sleep suddenly fell upon me. In my dream I saw Muhammad, the apostle of God, who addressed me in these words, Give ear, O shepherd, to my words, and treasure them within your heart, for these words of mine are the trust of God which I commit to your keeping. If you be faithful to them, great will be your reward. If you neglect them, grievous retribution will befall you. Hear me. This is the trust with which I charge you. Stay within the precincts of the Masjid-i-Baratha. On the third day after this dream, a scion of my house, Sayyid Kazim by name, will, accompanied by his friends and companions, alight at the hour of noon beneath the shadow of the palm in the vicinity of the masjid. There he will offer his prayer. As soon as your eyes fall upon him, seek his presence and convey to him my loving greetings. Tell him, from me, rejoice, for the hour of your departure is at hand. When you shall have performed your visits in KÁZIM-I and shall have returned to Karbala, there 3 days after your return, on the day of Arafi, the 31st of December, AD 1843, you will wing your flight to me. Soon after shall he who is the truth be made manifest. Then shall the world be illuminated by the light of his face. A smile wreathed the countenance of Sayyid Kazim upon the completion of the description of the dream related by that shepherd. He said, Of the truth of the dream which you have dreamt there is no doubt. His companions were sorely grieved. Turning to them, he said, Is not your love for me for the sake of that true one whose advent we all await? Would you not wish me to die, that the promised one may be revealed? This episode, in its entirety, has been related to me by no less than 10 persons, all of whom were present on that occasion and who testified to its accuracy. And yet many of those who witnessed with their own eyes such marvelous signs have rejected the truth and repudiated his message. This strange event was noised abroad. It brought sadness to the hearts of the true lovers of Sayyid Kazim. To these he, with infinite tenderness and joy, addressed words of cheer and comfort. He calmed their troubled hearts, fortified their faith, and inflamed their zeal. With dignity and calm he completed his pilgrimage and returned to Karbala. The very day of his arrival he fell ill and was confined to bed. His enemies spread the rumor that he had been poisoned by the governor of Baghdad. This was sheer calumny and downright falsehood, inasmuch as the governor himself had placed his unqualified confidence in Sayyid Kazim and had always regarded him as a highly talented leader endowed with keen perception and possessed of irreproachable character. On the day of Arafi, in the year AH 1259, AD 1843, at the ripe age of 60, Sayyid Kazim, in accordance with the vision of that lowly shepherd, bade farewell to this world, leaving behind him a band of earnest and devoted disciples who, purged of all worldly desire, set out in quest of their promised beloved. His sacred remains were interred within the precincts of the shrine of the Imam Hussein. His passing raised a tumult in Karbala, similar to the agitation that seized its people in the preceding year. A footnote says, During the lifetime of Sayyid Kazim, the doctrine of the Sheikhis spread over all Persia so well that in the province of Iraq alone there were more than 100,000 murids. Journal Asiatique, 1866, volume 7, page 463. His passing raised a tumult in Kabila similar to the agitation that seized its people the preceding year on the eve of the day of Arifi, when the victorious enemy forced the gates of the citadel and massacred a considerable number of its besieged inhabitants. A year before, on that day, his house had been the one haven of peace and security for the bereaved and homeless, whereas now it had become a house of sorrow where those whom he had befriended and succored bewailed his passing and mourned his loss. The footnote here says, "Here ends the history of the establishment of Shaykhism, or at least of its unity, for after the death of Sayyid KÁZIM-I-RASHTÍ, it became divided into two branches. One branch, under the name of Babism, flowered as foreshadowed by the strength of the movement created by Sheikh Ahmad, thus fulfilling the expectations of the two masters, if one may believe in their predictions. The other, under the leadership of Karim Khan-i-Kaja-i-Kirmani, will continue its struggles against the Shiite sect, but will always seek security in effecting the outer appearance of Ithna Asharism. If, according to Karim Khan, the Bab and his followers are infamous and impious, for the Bab'is, Karim Khan is the Antichrist or Dajjal foretold by Muhammad." A.L.M. Nicholas's Essay sur le Shaykhisme, Volume 2, page 31.
So this is really a story related to travel between Karbala and Kazimain. The Sayyid KÁZIM-I-RASHTÍ with his disciples, 10 of his attendants, and before a mosque he was basically praying, and a shepherd approaches him and tells him that he basically dreamt Muhammad in his dream to come and basically find the herald of the new manifestation that is coming by this Sayyid or this Sheikh. So he's approaching him and telling him about his dream, and basically mentioned that this would be his last days on earth, and after that the new manifestation would arise and introduce himself.
Do we know who poisoned him?
No, nobody was poisoned.
He wasn't actually poisoned.
No, he wasn't. But this,
it was just that was.
Yeah, he was old. Yeah, it was time to remember.
It was just his time, but he wasn't.
Right. So he was foretold that basically this shepherd told him that his days are numbered, and when he went back to Karbala, basically he fell sick and passed away.
Oh, okay.
But his enemies mentioned that the governor of Baghdad poisoned him, which is really not the truth.
Okay.
And he was very revered, and he didn't even reach Baghdad anyways. He was in Kazimain.
But poisoning was very popular amongst.
Well, of course, that was the whole.
I was just thinking that.
Yes.
We had everybody was poisoned.
There is information that many of those who witnessed the story, 10
Right.
people, they didn't, they rejected the truth and mitigated his message. Is there any more information why they rejected the truth? Because
Well, this is the whole process. Remember, it's very difficult because majority of Shiites, which these were Shiites at the time, there was no other religion. Although they believed these illusions, they didn't really want to believe, as Sheikh Ahmad Ahsai was mentioning, that the Islam is finished, is terminated.
Is there any reference to this particular story some other place than in Dawnbreakers? I mean, to understand what was the reason of those, for me, for example, it's not clear. If you are present in front of something that is just, you can say this is what it is.
But he repeatedly
turn around and you say no.
No, of course. No, this is an excellent situation. But remember the situation that was there. Majority of these people majority of these people were basically preparing themselves for the Messiah to come. But no one wanted to really change their religion, leave everything behind. And that was the whole process. It's a very difficult thing to really suddenly you accept all the illusions that basically Sheikh Ahmad Ahsa'i brought in related to the end of time. He wanted to basically bring it to the reality of what it meant. And obviously they saw, and many of them may have understood, but they weren't willing to walk in the path of martyrdom because they knew what's going to happen. They had to leave their wealth, their titles, their families, their belongings, everything behind, and walk and try to basically resurrect a new religion. And ironically, this struggle exists today. Because what happens is that within ourselves, we have to make this choice. And Baha'i religion actually is not saying that one religion is bad versus one religion is good. Because Baha'i religion believes all of them are the same religion. So you can't take a book of God, whether it's Bible, Zoroastrian books, let's say even, or Old Testament, New Testament, or whatever it is, and you find fault with it as far as revelation of God. Because it's the continuation of maturation of the humanity in terms of comprehending and being able to exercise it. Right? So the question is that those protection or limitation that has been put on humanity in our eyes, because we're living in a free society today, that may seem to be limitation, was necessity at the time, otherwise the society wouldn't have functioned. So the key really is of all religious, all messengers of God, again, this is the belief related to what's called basically ancient spirit. So there are three major distinctions in the Baha'i religion, where is world of God, which is unknowable essence. You have world of manifestation, which is the ancient spirit, where the spirit existed from beginning of time, and at the time of conception gets infused from this world of spirit, of manifestation, into the body of the person. That's the reason their infallibility or knowledge of the prior religion and or future events is ingrained in them, because when you take the sun away or physical body, there is no time anymore. The time has no meaning. You see, the time has meaning for us because we have a physical body. Right?
Yeah,
it gets destroyed. Okay, so when you have an ancient spirit that has innate knowledge, now, we on the other hand, at the time of conception, our spirit gets fused with our body. It's not inside our body, it's fused with the body. The other world that we're talking about, or a spiritual world, is actually intertwined with this world here. It's like another dimension. If you look at theory of, for example, unified forces, they mathematically they came up with 11 dimensions that, of course, is so tiny we can't see it, we can't measure it, we can't feel it here, but it exists. So those 4 forces, they proved through mathematical model that they're actually the same force, manifesting in different form of weak nuclear force, strong nuclear force, and so on and so forth. So the reality of other dimension in theoretical physics already is there to basically describe the reality of the universe itself. And Baha'i religions, or Baha'u'llah's mentioned that the other world is is here. It's another dimension of what we are. So when we do transition, our body disseminates, it disappears, it turns to dust, but our spirit lives forever and is visible. And there are huge, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have another example,
sure.
Just very, very connected to what you just said, is that for those who don't believe in God or don't follow that direction yet, I just create a picture in mind that we live on Earth and we see everything that we can just comprehend through our vision and senses. But if you imagine that there is a whole universe that we don't investigate, but it exists. So if that person is able to imagine this, he understands how little he is and how he really doesn't know anything about what is that existence.
No, of course, but
yeah,
no, it's exactly. But there are references in Baha'i literature, or Baha'u'llah mentions logically. You say that the universe itself has no brain. It has a destiny, and you can measure this destiny. That means everything within the universe itself is accidental, or from point of view of the physical. No energy gets added to it, no energy gets subtracted. It just moves from one form to the other, right? Now, if everything is subservient to this model that doesn't have any brain, how could a basically predetermined or forced environment create something that is superior than itself? That's not possible. How could humanity exist that can fly, that can basically defy the laws of nature, right? How could a painting create the painter? You can't. It's not possible. And this is Baha'u'llah is right. This is very, very obvious.
Actually, painter and painted are the same things. If you go to the level of cell level atoms and so on.
No, of course. The DNAs of trees are us. I did a presentation on that a couple of years ago.
To add to Eugene's question is that when a new idea comes, even all these religions, even Baha'ism, warn about false prophets. Meaning that when the next guy shows up with a book in his hand, you have to investigate and find out whether it's true or not. Ever since Baha'u'llah's time, there have been 14 people claiming to be Mahdi. All 4 of them have been killed. And the last one was in the holy site of Kaaba, which is in Mecca. So that's part of the reason that people already have this wall in front of them, that when a new idea comes, unless that idea can take this wall break by break and convince you to unfold itself, it's not going to be accepted. So that's part of in fact, we were discussing this issue of Baha'ism, and somebody said that, I don't believe that this Baha'i claim is true, that everybody is going to become a Baha'i on this earth. And I said, okay, that's interpretation. Nobody is claiming that everybody is going to become a Baha'i on the face of the earth.
That's not possible, actually.
What is happening is that the pillars of this religion are settling themselves into the system. And once the system follows these pillars, whether you call yourself a Baha'i or not, it doesn't matter, because you are following that system.
Right. And they are. Again, ever-advancing civilization follows the same process. This is, ironically, is the only element in the whole universe that doesn't follow entropy. Entropy is every element that you can look at in the whole universe, every element, it basically disintegrates to its components. The sun eventually dies. The earth eventually collapses into sun. a tree dies. Anything that you can think of goes through this process of entropy. Everywhere. Stars, energies, supernovas, whatever it is, follows this entropy, laws of thermodynamics. And it's given. No energy is getting added, no energy is taken off. So what happens is this. What does it mean? You cannot create a self-running engine that doesn't get energy from outside, right, and keeps on going. There is no such a thing. That means eventually the sun would use inside the energy that it has inside, right? Eventually it collapses. Once the energy is consumed, it collapses, it dies. Right? So now why? Out of everything in the universe, the only thing that defies this law is civilization. That's the only thing that, when you look at from the time of Adam to here, the civilization, regardless of all the calamities that had occurred, the civilization is growing, is defying actually laws of thermodynamics. What does it say? It says that because it's an event that we're looking at, it's happening, right? It's happening. The civilization is continuously growing, continuously improving itself. Therefore, it must have energy coming from outside the system. Otherwise, it would collapse like anything else. Yes?
There are two words, intelligence and awareness, or reason, I would say. You know?
Of course, as well. The comprehension or level of comprehension of humanity is increasing also. But civilization itself is growing too. Actually, these are revelations which it's referenced in Quran and in Bab's writing as well, that says that all the knowledge of humanity would be discovered during the coming of the Qaim and this return of Jesus Christ. That means if you look at last, let's say 150 years, discoveries of humanity, it's comparable to 10,000 years history of humankind. And why is it? What is different this time? These are, again, humanity reached that stage that this new manifestation can implement this energy that is coming outside the system. How does this energy get infused into the system from time of Adam to the time of today, which is Baha'u'llah, is through the manifestation.
Through his laws.
Yeah. Right. Holy Spirit, which is Christian term, which in Baha'i is synonymous to Word of God, writings of God, this is the extra energy that is coming from outside the system that infuses into this civilization that keeps it growing continuously.
One day is it going to collapse?
Not civilization. The religion collapses. You're correct. The religion collapses, but not civilization. Because religion, again, has, like anything else, falls into the entropy. Because humanity is trying to exercise the laws of God, and when they reach the point where they dilute or introduce man-made interpretation into the religion, it dilapidates the religion, and the religion would die. But civilization, the next manifestation comes in, and civilization still is going to go ahead.